Yeah, thank you. Um, Glad everybody could join us today. When this position became available, I felt like it was imperative that I found the right fit for Mizzou football, and also for myself and somebody that I could work hand in hand together. I outlined a set of criteria that I thought would play off of my strengths, but also help me in my weaknesses, to really support Mizzou football and get us to where we want to go, which is to win the SEC East. The very first thing that I was looking for was a man of character, somebody who represented the values that our program has on a daily basis, somebody who could support the vision for our program, understand what it means to be a Mizzou Tiger and what our goals are on a daily basis, a great teacher and communicator, somebody who could be a leader of the staff and a motivator of our players, and then somebody who had experience at the highest level that I could bounce ideas off of. They could, if they were a former head coach, I thought that would be a really positive for me still as I'm learning to be a head coach. And so I kind of set these criteria up, fielded a lot of phone calls, but ultimately kept circling back to one person and really just targeted them for a while. And finally was able to get Coach Wilks to join us. Steve Wilks embodies all of these characteristics that I've been looking for. Somebody who is a man of great character. We are excited to welcome his wife and 3 kids to our program. Somebody who has a great reputation for a strong defense and defensive football. Somebody who has great reputation in the coaching community as far as being a leader of men and motivator of players. You've seen the outpouring of support in social media from former players who are congratulating, including former great Tigers like Marcus Golden, talking about how much fun it was and how much respect they have for Coach Wilks. I know that he'll be a leader of our staff, and obviously his experience, not only in college football, but in the NFL, will be invaluable to us as we continue to chase our goal to win the SEC East. So with that, I will open it up for questions, and then we will turn it over to Coach Wilks. So questions?
Looks like first one's going to be Gabe DeArmond, Power Mizzou. Go ahead, take it away, Gabe.
Yeah, Eli, I know every coach generally has kind of a list in their back pocket of, hey, if I ever need somebody, these are some guys I want to talk to. Is that something that you had, and how prepared were you for the possibility of maybe needing to go on this search when Ryan left for Illinois?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a list of people. I had first got to know Coach Wilks last year when I was at Appalachian State. And actually knew of him just being at North Carolina State, knowing the defense that he was able to put together with the Panthers. And so, he was somebody that I always had a tremendous amount of respect for, and there was an open line of communication there. Absolutely had a list ready to go, and I'm ready at really just about any position, to be honest.
Next up is Dave Matter from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, Eli, the fact that Steve hasn't coached at the college level for a long time, how closely did you have to look at that when taking into consideration just the recruiting aspect and then just being out of the college game?
Yeah, it was one thing that I considered just because I do think there are some distinct differences in the game. But because he had experience in college football, I think most recently at Notre Dame, I knew that there was going to be a familiarity with what it was in recruiting. I know there's a familiarity with what football is, and I think you're seeing, some success with NFL coordinators coming down and joining us in the college game. But the most important thing, and you'll see when you get to visit with him in recruiting, he's a great communicator. He's somebody that's going to be identifiable with. He's somebody that recruits are going to immediately recognize as somebody who can get them and develop them to great men, but also great football players. He's got experience in the NFL. He's going to have more experience on the NFL side of football than any other coordinator in our conference. He's got more experience in the NFL than I believe any coach in our conference. So for that to be, the stated goal of most of our players to get there that we recruit, why would you look anywhere else than with Coach Wilks and what he's done in the past on the defensive side of football and what he's going to be able to do developing those players here. So to me, I thought it was going to be more of a strength than any type of weakness. And recruiting is all about relationships. And again, once you get a chance to visit with Coach Wilks, you'll see that I don't think that's going to be a problem.
Ben Arnett, KOMU TV, go ahead.
Eli, when you look at some of those pro to college success stories you just referenced, what translates well from the NFL to college?
Well, I mean, player development, schematics, wanting to do it at the highest level, holding players accountable. Experience is the best teacher, so he's going to be able to immediately walk in and tell these guys, hey, you want to play at the NFL, these are the things that you have to do. There's a lot of coaches who are selling out there that, hey, if you want to go play the NFL, this is what you need to do, but they haven't coached in the NFL. They haven't coached, in Super Bowls and in NFC championships. So they're saying what they think it is. He's going to be able to say, this is what it is. This is how you do it. This is what that experience is like. And I think, again, just a man of character, somebody that we're all going to have a tremendous amount of respect for because of the wisdom that he brings and the way he relates, a standard of excellence and a standard of discipline. So I think it's going to translate really well. I mean, the worries are whether or not, RPOs and hashes are a little tighter. I think football coaches can figure that. But last time I checked, it's not like they play with 12 and motion towards the line of scrimmage. It's an 11-11 on football game.
Mitch, 40 Power Mizzou, go ahead.
Eli, you mentioned someone with head coaching experience kind of being a plus. I guess, why was that so important to you in this search?
Well, I think it was just a plus, but obviously somebody who's gone through some of the same things that we experience, whether or not it's player discipline or schedules or, dealing with things that only people understand that have sat in that head coach's chair. There's only one way to understand that, and that's for you to have sat in it, and coaches sat in that chair. Obviously, I'll be able to bounce some stuff off of him, and we've already had, yesterday flying in just discussions on schedules and what ways we could do some things better.
Jack Sobel, the man eater, go ahead.
Eli, even as an offensive coach, what are your philosophies on what your team's defensive identity should be and how that kind of lead you to Coach Wilks?
Yeah, very simply for us, it's stop the run and have some fun. Number 2, it's use harass and hit the quarterback. And number 3, it's tackling turnovers and situational football. And turnovers for us, we're going to start calling ball disruption. So for us, those are the 3 things. That's the 3 things that I want our defense to be able to do. How Coach Wilks and the staff handle that is totally up to them. But we're going to stop the run and make a team be one-dimensional. We're going to confuse, harass, hit the quarterback. We're going to force takeaways, ball disruption, be great tacklers, and understand situational football.
If I could ask a quick follow-up, you mentioned the turnovers part. Wilks has a background with the Lovie Smith tree, which is pretty famous for forcing a lot of turnovers. Is that something that really appealed to you when you were looking for a coach?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the great research you did on that to understand that was absolutely something that has always been a part of what Coach Wilks' defensive identity has been.
Eric Blum, Columbia Tribune, go ahead.
Hey, Eli, I'm wondering if you went back and watched any of the defenses that he ran either with the Panthers or somewhere else, and what were your observations of that led you to okay, this is a guy that can come here and have success?
Yeah, I've obviously watched quite a bit of film on a lot of different things. Obviously wish we could get some of those great players from the Panthers to come join us, but no, I think, his understanding of knowing how to stop the run, how to force pressure, how to create a defensive identity. All great coaches take what they have and make it to what they want. So he's obviously going to be able to transition, what he's got player-wise to make it fit the schemes, but he understands who his DNA is.
Kyle Pinnell, the man eater.
Yeah, hey Eli, it wasn't that long ago that Coach Wilks talked about maybe taking a year off to kind of reassess and going into the hiring process. What were those early conversations like, and how did you go about convincing him that now is the right time to go right back into coaching at the college level?
I think we're all looking for the right opportunities. For us, core value number 4 is enjoy the journey. Football is it's not really a destination-oriented business. It's really about being on the journey with people that you really care about, and being aligned. Alignment is, to me, the greatest indicator of success. Can we all be aligned in our core values and our goals? And so just really tried to share with him what our vision for Mizzou football is and what our goals are on a daily basis and how we go about accomplishing those goals. And I think those resonated with both of us on what we think is important. And, ultimately, Coach had a lot of opportunities, a lot of different places that he could have ended up being. But I think the opportunity to be at Mizzou, to get into the best college, get into the best conference in college football, and to establish himself here as a great defensive coordinator, I think is just going to open up a lot of doors for him in the future.
Colin O'Brien, Jeff City News.
Eli, it's the nature of the business, but for players that maybe were recruited or committed to coaches that aren't here anymore, how did you go about, talking those guys through this process? And then how much information did you share with the current defensive players as you were going about making this decision?
Well, I think first and foremost that every player that's committed here commits to the head coach and to the university. They don't commit to a position coach or area recruiter. And that's the job of the head coach, is to make sure that he builds relationships with players and families, and make sure that they understand the vision of the program and not necessarily the one person. Because what we do know is that assistant coaches do change. That's just part of this profession. So I haven't had any issues so far and don't anticipate any. I think everybody was just excited to see what the new direction is going to be. One of the things that I talked to our guys about are the same things that I talked to you about. And this is what I was looking for within hiring the new defensive coordinator. And then I made a promise to them that they would be the first to know as best I could, and was able to fulfill that promise on both the defensive coordinator hire and the defensive line hire. Before it was able to get out on social media or all that stuff, we were able to get that information to our players. And so that's been important to me, is to try to make sure they know first.
Andrew Kaufman, KMIZ.
Hey, Coach, just what kind of statement do you think this makes to get a former NFL head coach to come to Columbia as your defensive coordinator, kind of showcasing your recruiting ability, not just with players, but also with coaches?
I really don't think it has anything to do with me. I think it has to do with what everybody's buying into as far as what Mizzou and the opportunity that we have here to form an identity. Again, the same things that attracted me to Mizzou are the same things that I believe attracted not only Coach Wilks, but our new defensive line coach. It's a great opportunity to compete in a league that is open, that is an open door, that has an open gap for us to establish ourselves. And it's a challenge every single day to compete against the best without any layups, without any gimmies. And so I think that's really more what it is than necessarily me recruiting.
Gabe DeArmond, Power Mizzou.
Eli, I know you love follow-ups, so to avoid that, I'm just going to ask two questions at one time. First off, I'm sure you won't share names, although if you want to, that's great. But can you give us an idea of kind of how much interest, how many interviews you did for this, and also just kind of let us know what went into the situation with Brick and the decision to go a different direction there?
Yeah, lots of interest. Blew me away, honestly, how much interest and phone calls and coordinators were wanting this opportunity. Did my due diligence and interviewed, several people, a lot of which aren't known, and that's on purpose. But ultimately, really only had one recruiting trip, and that was to go land Coach Wilks, and that was my, really my singular focus when I went and left here to go interview people, was to go convince Coach Wilks to join the Tigers. As far as the defensive line position, just felt like it was an opportunity for us to go in to have a fresh start, respect Coach Haley and the job that he's done here for the previous 4 years, and wish him nothing but the best. But it was an opportunity for us to start new and go in a different direction, and felt like I needed to do that. And so, with that, we're in the process of hiring Jethro Franklin, a guy who has a tremendous amount of history, both in the NFL and college, just a tremendous amount of energy and character, a guy who knows technique and details, and somebody who I think can really help us grow in the defensive line room and recruiting. So we will be working on finalizing that hire within the next day.
And final question, Coach Drinkwitz, comes from Dave Matter, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Go ahead, Dave.
Eli, how much did you kind of lean on Coach Harbison for talking when you hired Steve, just because of their association working together?
None. We don't trust Cheese with high level decisions like that. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, Cheese had a relationship with Coach Harbison, but for the sake of trying to keep everything really tight to the vest, tried to limit everybody's knowledge of what was going on. Coach Smith and Coach Wilks are also fraternity brothers, so tried to limit that exposure too as best I can. But we're all really excited to have Coach Wilks join us, and but no, I didn't. I made my own evaluations. I didn't ask Coach Cheese for any. Right, Coach Wilks. So, hey, with that, I'm going to introduce Coach Wilks. We'll bring him up to the podium. Thanks, guys, and great to see all y'all on Zoom again.